Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. And hi, Pete. Thank you for having me. And my little girl, Boo.
Oh, there she is. Hello, Boo. Hello, Boo. How are you doing? Great to see you, little dog. Look at this. And she got the most gorgeous little eyes.
She really does. She's so expressive.
Yeah.
Now, Boo is... she's only 11 months old, Pete, so I don't know how much she's going to want to stay in the same spot with me.
Sure. We'll see how things go, okay?
Yeah. She might come and go. We'll see.
Listen, I have my little dog Kiko on with me often, and I know exactly what that's like. What they say, animals and children in show business, it's not always a great mix. But sure, we'll make the most of it while she's here then.
Yeah,
so
go for it. If anybody, by the way, has questions that they want to pop up for you and I during this, feel free to put them in, and myself and Pete will try and get to them. That's
great. It's great to have that opportunity. And I have to say, we're going to focus on questions about the topics we're talking about today, which is really about we're going to move on after chatting about Boo, talking about introducing dogs to new babies. So that's where we want the focus of questions to be, because I'm the issue here. But anyway, ask away, and we'll get to the questions towards the end of the chat. But first of all, I want to know a little bit about Boo. She's a Yorkshire Terrier.
She is. She's a Yorkshire Terrier, and as I said, she's 11 months old. She's a particularly petite Yorkshire Terrier. I wasn't expecting her to be as small as she is. When my vet told me he thought she was fully grown, I got a bit of a shock. But she's full of personality. What she makes up for in personality, what she lacks in size.
I think one of the interesting things about Yorkshire Terriers is they come in quite a wide range, from genuinely teacup size that would sort of sit in your hand and be literally the size of a teacup, to right down to big Yorkshire Terriers that would be maybe twice or three times the size of Boo there. So that there's a lot of variety.
Yeah, I think just terriers in general, I suppose. My dog before Boo was a Cairn Terrier, and I was very attached to that kind of terrier personality. Now after she passed away, I didn't think I was going to get another dog, but when I met Boo, it was just, she has me wrapped around her finger.
and tell me more about her personality. Are you doing much sort of obedient stuff with her and so on?
We do a lot of training with Boo. So in particular, my husband is really into the training. I'm a little bit more of a softie. He's very strict with her, and she's been really good. She's really obedient. The only thing we struggle with Boo is dinner time. She kind of loses her mind a little bit when we have our dinner, and it's the only time where she finds her voice, and she will just bark, and it's like the smell of that chicken.
So tell me, what do you feed her on? What is her meal these days?
So her meals are, she gets, what's it called, Royal Canin. But she had started to go off it. So I was on one of your lives the other week, and I asked a question about that, and you had suggested maybe starting to introduce another type of kibble into her meal. So I started to do that, and now she's eating again.
Good.
However, I think even though she only tastes that kind of high value treat of chicken when we're training her, that taste of it,
she loves it.
She knows when mum and dad are having it, and she wants it as well. So she goes crazy at dinner time. So we're just trying to work on that to maybe divert her attention somewhere else, or because we were just ignoring her, and that just wasn't working.
So do you feed her before you have your own dinner or afterwards?
Now this might be the incorrect thing to do, but she just generally has her food in her bowl.
Yeah, that's fine. But some people, it's an old-fashioned thing now, actually. But there used to be an idea that you would have your food first before you feed the dogs, and the idea was that the top dog ate first. Now, this is a load of nonsense, okay? It's not, don't bother about that. But I always feel sorry for dogs in that situation, because they'd be sitting there salivating watching the people having their food while they can't have theirs yet. So I wouldn't blame her for barking if that was the case, but you're not doing that anyway.
No, we're not doing that. Now, what we have just started doing, Pete, is we got this ball, and you put the kibble into the ball, and she has to figure out how to roll the ball to get the kibble to fall out. So that's kind of been something to distract her. And even though she won't eat the kibble out of her own dinner bowl, when it comes out of the ball, it's like the biggest treat ever.
Yeah. My Kiko loves those balls as well, and it's a great way of combining activity and exercise with eating as well. It works really, really well because the dog gets rewarded every time they get a little bit of kibble, and so they love the game even more. And so tell me what about exercise? What do you do with her as far as exercise is concerned?
Well, I mean, you would think she doesn't need that much exercise. She actually will go on really long walks. So she gets walked once a day. Once a day is enough for her. She would sleep then for quite a number of hours afterwards. But unfortunately, the other week, and I've been told this is quite common in terriers, she dislocated her knee.
Yes.
So we had to stop walking for a while, and now I've just been kind of very gradually introducing smaller walks, because even though she wants to go crazy on the big walks, I'm not so sure it's the best for her.
Yeah, it might be a bit much. That probably mentioned a dislocated knee. What it actually is, it's called a slipping kneecap or a luxating patella.
That's what it is.
And really, if that's a dog's leg and that's the knee, the kneecap sits just in front of it normally. And in little dogs like Boo, sometimes that kneecap, the ligaments around it are too loose, and the groove that it sits in is too shallow. And then what happens is the kneecap just slips to either side. And when it slips round to the side, the knee just feels weird for the dog, and then they can't put weight on it properly, so they skip along for a while. It's called a skipping lameness. The problem with that is it's inherited, it's genetic, and what that means is that, you know, some Yorkshire Terriers just have it and that's it. And sometimes it's only minor, it just happens, I don't know, once a week or something, and most of the time dog's absolutely normal, and that's fine. Other times it starts to cause a lameness really a lot of the time, and when that's the case, then you actually have to have surgery on the knee to fix it. And what the surgery does is it makes the groove physically deeper by literally reaming it out, and by tightening up the ligaments around it, it makes the kneecap tighter in place. So it's really common. But what I would suggest is next time you're at the vet, ask them to assess her kneecaps, and basically we give kneecaps a grade from 1 to 5 as to how bad the slipping patella is. And you know, if it's a high grade one, then it does need surgery at some stage. Otherwise, you just don't need to worry too much.
They basically, yeah, that's exactly what the situation was. They gave me anti-inflammatories for her for a week. Yeah. And they said 2 weeks of no jumping on the couch, no getting up onto the bed, which was a nightmare trying to stop her from doing those things.
Difficult.
And to rest it as much as possible, because they said if it was possible for the scar tissue to hold the kneecap in place, that would be the best possible scenario. And thank God we were strict enough that when I brought her back after 2 weeks, they said they didn't think she needed surgery. Yeah,
but that's great. That's great.
Thank God.
But it is one of those things that often as a dog gets older, as they mature, it can change. And a kneecap that was fine in a young dog can get to the stage where it needs to have an operation. So it's one of those things you'll have to watch. Do you have Boo insured?
I do.
You know, that's great, because it's one of the thing. It's a great thing to have, because you know nobody expects the dog's going to have a weird knee. Never mind, like really expensive surgery on the knee. So once you have them insured from the start, it means you're covered for everything. If you'd wait till now before getting her insured, the insurance company would say, "Well, wait a minute now, she's had this dodgy knee, we won't cover her for that."
And you don't realise how quickly and easily that it can add up, because I just brought her up thinking, I didn't think it was serious because she was never yelping, and I said, I bet I'll just bring her and get her checked, and then suddenly she needed x-rays and she needed medicine, and it very quickly can all suddenly add up, and you just don't want to find yourself in a position where you're worried about the finance of having to look after your pet's best health, I think. So it's just such a reassuring thing to have, I think, to have that insurance.
And like one of the big changes in the veterinary world in the last decade especially has been that compared to 10 years ago, there's a lot more available now. Like it's really easy now to get a CT scan or an MRI scan for your dog, or to get really super fancy orthopedic surgery with special titanium plates and all this stuff. So all this high-end veterinary is now available, but it's like really expensive. And I say really expensive in the veterinary world. You know, it's not like in the human world where you can get into tens of thousands of euro. That's very unlikely, but it could be somewhere between 2,000 and 7,000 euro would be quite common in the animal world, and that's what you're paying for with insurance. You're paying for that risk of that happening. It doesn't happen to most pets by any means, but
and the insurance is never that much to get in the first place, so it's worth it for the peace of mind.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you got that. And so tell me, talking about her sort of medical stuff, what do you do about parasite control for Boo? What approach do you think
so
about that?
initially, when we first brought her to the vet, we gave her a tablet that covers worming and the fleas, but her stomach couldn't handle it.
Right. So
now I go up once a month and I get a little liquid and I put it on the skin on the back of her neck, and she just can't get wet for 24 hours.
Yeah, and you get that from your vet, do you?
I do get that from my vet, because they said it's important that they weigh her each time to make sure it's the correct dosage.
I think the biggest thing is this, that a lot of people buy products that they don't really understand, and they don't know for sure that they're going to work. And I know as a vet, because sometimes typically a person would come into me with an animal that's itching, and they'd say, you know, I'd say, well, I think your dog's got fleas, and the dog does have fleas. And they say, but how can it have fleas? Because I've been using flea drops every month. And what people don't realize is that one type of drop isn't the same as another type of drop. And they show me the drops they've been using, they got from the supermarket, and the drops are actually a herbal drop. And when you read the details on the small print, it says herbal drop may help to prevent fleas, may help to prevent. Not the same as will definitely kill the fleas, you know? So you have to
know that people could buy them in the supermarket.
You can, yes, you can buy. Well, you see, there's an amazing variety of parasite control available nowadays, and it ranges from, I suppose, the ones that have been around for a long time, so everybody knows that they're very, very safe. They're not always as effective, but they've been around for so long that they've kind of moved down the pyramid and they're now available everywhere. And then you get the ones kind of in the middle that are available often in pet shops, and at the Petfix Club we sell them in the online store as well. And these are ones that are well established, and there's spot-on products and tablets, and they're really good for some situations. And then for other situations, you go to your vet like you've done, and you get they're the more recent products that haven't been around for so long, and so they're still prescription-only products. So that's why your dog has to be weighed properly and get that exactly right, so you can be really sure that you're using these products safely, and they're very effective as well. But basically, it's horses for courses. It's finding out what's for your situation and your dog. Actually, on our website, we have got sort of guides to, if you can put in your details of your pet, and then you can answer a series of questions, and then it'll tell you this is the type of parasite control you need for your pet. And it is important to get it right, not just for Boo, but also for your household, because some of the parasites that can affect dogs can also affect humans, and that's everything. Yeah. It's okay though. With what you're doing, it's not an issue. Okay. If you're using regular parasite control, you've dealt with it, and that's the point.
And I actually, if I'm being brutally honest, with my last dog, I didn't do regular parasite control. And it was only when I got Boo and the vet explained to me, you live right beside a park, so it's particularly important that she regularly gets looked after with this kind of stuff. And I just didn't know that before. Yeah,
you see, that's why. It's like feeding as well. It's really important that our pets' health care is individualized. So that's why our website would ask you questions, because you have to know about the individual animal. Not just, you can't say, this is right for every single animal. It's not right for every single animal. You have to ask questions like, is a dog indoors or outdoors? Do they eat slugs and snails? Do they chew grass? You know, does a cat go hunting? Does your dog meet other dogs much? All of these sort of complicated questions. And once you've got the answer to the questions, it's really easy to get the right parasite control. And you've really done that well, Lottie, by talking to your vet. Not everybody's going to talk to the vet about that, and that's why websites like Petfix Club are helpful, because you know they're another way of getting the information out to people. But it really is important to pay attention to it, and unfortunately, a lot of people are very random about it, and that doesn't work well for the dogs at the end of the day. You know?
Yeah, and I think, like you're saying, whether it's through the Petfix website answering questions or asking your vet questions, it is important to do, because I wouldn't have known if I hadn't tried that first time with the tablet version that Boo had a very delicate stomach, and
Yes,
it wasn't going to work. So you do, it is a little bit of trial and error to find out, well, what does your dog need?
Exactly. So listen, the main topic we're going to talk about today was getting dogs ready for a baby. And is that the situation that you're at, is it?
Yes, it is. So we're welcoming our first baby in August.
Right.
And obviously, well, let's say second baby, because that's how Boo was treated, which is the exact reason that we're just a little bit nervous of jealousy, really. We don't want her to be put out, because she does get a huge amount of attention, not just because of how much we love her, but you know, I do work from home at the moment, as a lot of people do, and your dog gets a lot of extra attention when you're in that situation. They're used to having you around all the time and giving them all that love. So I just want to do everything I can to make this transition for her as easy as possible, I suppose.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right to prepare. I mean, when you look at you with a dog like Boo, you're even holding her in your arms like a baby, aren't you?
Yeah, I know.
Well, like I was the same when we were not that long married. We weren't quite ready for children yet, but we found ourselves getting a kitten, and guess what we called the kitten? What? We called the kitten Baby.
No, it's actually a really good name.
Yeah, but it's because it was a little cute kitten that would just sit in your hand like a little baby. And if anybody had said to me, you're getting that baby, you're calling that kitten Baby because in your mind you're thinking about maybe having a baby, and we'd say, no way. It's just, look, it's a baby-like kitten. That's what's going on. But anyway, bang on course. About 18 months later, our first child arrived. And there's no doubt that at some level, that little kitten was fulfilling the emotional niche that our baby later. You can't say it was the same in any way, but there's definitely some sort of connection. So for you now, your focus is naturally going to be totally on Boo these days, because you're caring for Boo really, really well. And she's there all the time, and she's great fun. But when the baby comes along, obviously you can't keep up that focus. And I think most dogs adapt really well to this, but I think you have to try, the main thing is to try to see it from the dog's perspective. And what dogs are good at is adapting, but they're much better at adapting gradually rather than suddenly. So the main thing for you is to try to make the change for Boo more gradual than would happen if you didn't plan. If you didn't plan, you just have life as normal, then suddenly there'd be a pause while you were gone. When you came back, you'd have this strange object with you, and you'd be, as far as Boo's concerned, you'd be ignoring her completely. And Boo would be, you know, naturally have her nose badly put out of joint. So you want to prevent that, okay?
Absolutely.
So you do it gradually. And what that means is, means three things to me. The first thing it means is that you should imagine, in the month before the baby arrives, imagine the baby is already there and how much time you have for Boo. So change your routine. So, you know, move it towards a routine of play and feeding and exercise that you know will be sustainable once the baby's still there. And so if your husband's the one who's going to be doing the walking of Boo after the baby arrives, then get him to start to do the walking before baby arrives, so she's just used to everything in the new routine, you know?
Okay.
And if you're going to change her, where does she sleep these days? Does she sleep in the same room as you guys, or? You don't need to answer that question.
She sleeps in the bed.
In the bed. Okay.
So listen, I had Pete, I swear to God, I had all these rules before Boo came into the house, and she's broken every single one of them. Now she has her crate that has a lovely bed in it. And sometimes if she's feeling, you know, if she's her nose put out for some reason, she'll go off into that. But then I'll wake up in the middle of the night and she's smack bang under the duvet in the middle of the two of us.
There's nothing wrong with having animals in the bed. We have our cat sleeps on our bed and sometimes under the duvet with us as well. Animals do what they like to do. Like,
I thought you were going to give out to me for that.
No, it's absolutely fine. But I guess the thing is, just think, you're going to be happy with Boo there as well once baby's arrived. And
no.
Well, in that case, you kind of should already be thinking, well, let's just try and move Boo somewhere else to sleep. And it could be as simple as bringing the crate into your bedroom and putting a really comfy bed in the crate in your bedroom and leaving the door open and giving her the option of sleeping there. But the idea would be that gradually you get her used to that, so that she'd be not have a nose put out of joint when baby arrives and you're saying, into the crate with you now, Boo, because she wouldn't like that very much, you know?
No, not at all. So yeah, so I should probably start to slowly wean her out of the bed.
Exactly. And then the next thing I think is that you also want to get used to what a baby is, because dogs don't know that. Like, if a dog's never seen a baby before, it won't know what a baby is. And the funny thing is, they don't necessarily make the connection that the baby is a little human. Like, we think it's obvious, you know, baby, human, obvious. They don't know that necessarily. And so it can be quite frightening for them, because this is a small bundle of living flesh which is making a noise, and that their owners are really, really focused on, and it's very frightening for them. So what you should be doing is getting her used to babies. So I'm sure you're friends with babies at this stage. Somewhere around there. Yeah. So it's difficult now with social distancing and so on, but you've got plenty of time, because it's not till August. But you know, probably in June, July, and early August, you'd be making sure that Boo meets babies socially, so she gets familiar with them, so that she's not frightened or thinking strange when she sees you.
Yeah, I mean, in general, when I bring her on walks, she does prefer kids. She prefers the smaller the human in size. She tends to gravitate towards them. So I've kind of been taking that as a generally good indicator that once I start to maybe introduce her to babies, she'll be okay with it, maybe. Listen,
most of the time, regardless of what people do, this works out really, really well. So I wouldn't want you to worry too much at all. But just an extra thing to think about. Like when you're out on walks, you meet somebody with the baby, introduce Boo to the baby, so Boo sees the baby and understands that we're all part of the same pack, really, I suppose.
Exactly.
And the other thing that you might do is you can actually download soundtracks of babies crying. And it's not a bad idea to do that as well. I mean, it's probably the last thing you want to do yourself.
Imagine before the baby came, I was like, no, I've changed my mind. Pete, listen to loads of crying.
You could train yourselves in as well. Put the baby sound on max at 3 in the morning. Go into training for having a baby. But you might just put it on now and again in the background for Boo. So she's familiar with that sound. Doesn't get spooked the first time she hears the sound. So the next thing to think about is dogs actually live in a world of scent far more than we do. We're very visual. Like, look at us even now. We're visual. We're actually seeing each other. And that's really important to us humans. Whereas Boo's not even looking at me, you know? Like, Boo doesn't get that there's a little image in here where the voice is coming from, you know? So dogs, for them, scent is the biggest thing. So they can smell smells 40 times stronger than ourselves. And we all know already, naturally, we know that babies carry a little bit of a distinctive scent. Isn't it? Actually, it's a lovely scent, isn't it? If you think about what is it about that? You know, puppies and kittens have got the most lovely scent as well.
I don't know. Maybe it's a hormone thing to entice parents to want to hold them.
Yeah, it's really effective, but it's a strong scent, so we humans smell it strongly. For dogs, imagine how much stronger it is for them. So what you should do before the baby actually arrives, before you come home from the hospital with the baby, you should bring some of the baby's clothes or some blankets or whatever, items that have been in contact with the baby. You send your husband home with them and let Boo have a good sniff of them, and even put one in the bed so she can lie in it and so on. And she'll then become really accustomed to the scent of your baby. And that'll make it much easier for her to adapt to her as part of her own family.
She definitely is she's a keen dog on smells, because one of her favourite things to do is to take my dirty socks, and she'll find somewhere, she usually likes to dig into a blanket or something, and I'll wonder, where are all my socks gone? And then one day I'll just find this treasure chest of dirty socks. And she's no interest in the clean socks. She only wants the ones that have a strong smell off them.
It's disgusting. But you know, that's another little tip actually that I discovered for myself. Our dog Kiko will sometimes, for no particular reason, at 3 or 4 in the morning start to bark. She sleeps downstairs in the utility room, you know, and she's happy there. But once in a while she starts to bark furiously. And one of the things we've learned is, apart from letting her outside to go and empty her bowel and bladders or whatever, we've learned that if we go to our dirty laundry basket, pick out an old sweatshirt that we've been wearing for a few days, myself and my wife, we put it onto her bed, on top of her blanket, and she then settles so much better lying on the human smelly blanket. It really works well for her. So, you know, that's something else to think about. If you're trying to get Boo settled into her crate as a sleeping place, you might put an old sweatshirt that you've been wearing or your husband's been wearing in her bed, and that might just make her feel a bit more comfortable.
That is something that we do when we're trying to get her to rest, is we lay out one of our dressing gowns. Yeah. Because she's just much more inclined to go over and calm herself if she has something that smells like us.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And one last thing about babies I'm going to mention to you, and you know this already, but I'm just going to say it because it's so important. Even a lovely, good-natured, friendly, gentle dog like Boo, you can never completely trust them with babies. You can't leave them completely alone with babies, because they're not human. They don't have rational thought, dogs. And so what that means is they don't know that they're not to do certain things. And any animal can behave very unpredictably. And so you need to just be aware of that. So it just means always being around, you know, when baby's on the ground in the rocker or whatever and Boo is around, just make sure you're watching all the time and keeping a very close eye on things.
Pete, when is it okay for the baby to be alone with the dog? Is it only when they're old enough to push the dog away?
I'd say, you know, not until the child is well, like you're talking about 5 or 6 year old child, you know? Okay. Really, until the child is able to look after themselves, you have to. Even then, I mean, like, look, Boo's not an issue because she's only a little dog. I would get much more concerned about big dogs, you know, the big muscular bull breed type dogs or very large dogs. You know, there are terrible instances you hear about once in a blue moon, and the way to prevent those, you can't say, but I trust my dog completely, because you can never completely trust a dog. You just have to be sensible about it. Okay. So, do you have any other questions, Lottie, about all this that's going on?
I don't think so. I think I've got a lot of tips. I think that particularly bringing the baby clothes home in those first day or two so as Boo can smell them is going to be very helpful. And also making sure my husband maybe takes over the responsibility of the walks for a while.
Double function there.
Yeah, exactly.
Have time too. And listen, if people want to know more about the whole topic, I've written that an article on the Petfix website. So if you go to our bio, go to our Instagram bio, you'll find the link there. So everybody can go and read that if they like. Well, we just take some of the questions that have come in here. Let's just see what's going on. There's a congratulations, Lottie. That's a nice one for you.
Thank you.
And here's somebody saying, we usually let our dog upstairs, thinking of stopping this now with the baby due. Any tips? Well, I think that, that's up to you, you know. I think if you can, there's no harm in dogging upstairs if you have children in the house. That's a choice some people make. I think you have to be aware, though, that you can't have a dog wandering around uncontrolled, where there's a baby or a young child in a position where the two of them could interact. You can't let that happen. If that means you have to keep a dog out of the bedroom, that's fine. We actually learned this with our when we had our first child. I said we had a cat. One of the things we learned was that our cat was actually a little bit of a risk to our baby. You wouldn't think that was the case, but it's true that we found our cat used to go and lie wherever the baby had been, because again, cats like the scent of humans and of babies. And so there is an issue with babies sometimes lying on top, cats sometimes curling up and lying on top of babies. And so we had to be very, very careful to always lock or shut the bedroom door. And we actually had a net that went over the cot as well, so the cat couldn't jump. So, you know, dogs, I would say, I would shut the bedroom door. I wouldn't let the dog in the same room as the baby. I think that's just common sense, really, by themselves. Somebody wants to know about a dog barking and waking the baby up. That's a very big issue. That'd be very annoying. You can imagine you just got the baby asleep and you're exhausted. Next thing, dog barks a couple of times and the baby's awake again. Well, my thing with barking always is you should make sure that you try and understand why your dog is barking. Dogs don't just bark randomly, they bark for reasons. So try and identify what prompts your dog to bark. It can be sound, it can be light outside, it can be activity outside, lots of possible reasons. And you try then to make wherever your dog is sleeping as maybe make it soundproof, maybe make it light-proof, those kinds of things. And that's likely to make your dog a bit less liable to barking. Somebody's got a really jealous 3-year-old spoiled Cavachon. How to introduce it to a new Cavachon pup? Oh, that's a whole new topic. Baby dogs and dogs. Listen, that one, please. I'm not going to be able to answer that today. We really haven't got time. But what I would suggest is go to the Petfix Club section, and there's an Ask a Vet button there. You can click on that, and that sends an email to me straight away, and I'll get back to you within the hour, and we can talk a bit more about introducing dogs to puppies, because that's a whole different thing. And here's another one: how to make a dog not jealous of their new human sibling. Yes, how to make them not jealous. I think that's about giving the dog plenty of time, isn't it? So making sure that you still have dog time and human time. Don't leave a dog completely unattended. Make sure your dog does get all the play and all the exercise that it needs. And, you know, not to overdo it. I think it's quite useful to put yourself in the mind of a dog, see the world from a dog's point of view. And, you know, if there are things that, if you can imagine the dog, from the dog's point of view, the dog has now completely been ignored. If you imagine being that dog and looking up at humans and they're all completely ignoring you, that's no fun for you. So you have to do that to some extent. Okay.
I think that's why it's a good point that you made to maybe try and start doing that in the lead up to the baby coming home, so they don't attribute it directly to the baby.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting, good question from Leah there. Lottie, do you think Boo can sense there's a Baba on the way?
Oh God, I don't know. She does sleep in my lap and my arms much more than she would in my husband's. But I don't know if that's because I'm the one who's home all the time, or if it's because she senses something. When she sleeps in the bed, she does sleep directly beside my bump.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. If she does, she's certainly making it known that she doesn't want to be forgotten.
It's very interesting. And listen, do you know what? A lot of dogs become not only best buddies with new children in the house, but also best protectors. And they can be, some of the stories you hear are quite amazing at how good friends they are.
I grew up with we had well, when I was brought home from hospital, my parents had an Alsatian, and so that's obviously a very different situation to what I have with Boo. But like that, the dog became incredibly protective of me, and it was, I suppose it's probably one of the reasons why I want my child to grow up with a pet, because I just think it's such a wonderful bond for a kid and a baby to have with an animal, and to, as they get older, learn the responsibility of looking after one. And it's so many firsts you learn with a pet. So I just think it's a hugely important part of growing up. It was for me, and I'd love it to be for my kid as well. You're
so right, Lottie. They first of all, there's a protective effect against allergies having dogs in the house with young children, as long as the mother doesn't have strong allergies. There's done studies that show that children that grow up with babies that grow up with dogs are less likely to develop asthma. So there's a protective effect there, which is interesting.
Wow.
As well as that, children that grow up with pets are more self-confident and more socially adept, because Boo will be really good at teaching your baby body language. Your baby will be looking at Boo, and Boo can't talk, but she can certainly use the body to say what she wants. And your young child will be watching this and learning. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a really good question here, I think. Springer Spaniel eats everything. Is it a bad sign if it eats the baby grow? Well, yes, it's not good for dogs to eat baby grows generally, all right? Obviously, you don't want your dog eating things like that. But there's a really common one that I want to say to you, Lottie, and everybody, because you should know this one. One of the common foreign bodies that gets stuck inside dogs that we vets have to surgically remove is the end teat from one of the baby, what do you call those things?
A soother?
Yes, soother. The baby soother. You know the little bit of plastic on the end? Well, dogs love baby soothers because they can chew on that bit of plastic on the end, and it always this sort of milky doggy smell, or milky baby smell, and dogs love chewing them. And what happens is they bite off the little rubbery bit, and because it's like sort of stretchy like this, they can swallow it okay, but once it gets into the intestines, it just gets stuck completely, and next thing you have to have an operation. So be very aware if you're using soothers. Make sure that you don't let them drop on the ground and let Boo eat them, because it does happen.
She probably would eat them. I caught her eating a thong one day, and I just thought, my God, how embarrassing would it have been to have to go to the vet and say, I think my dog swallowed my thong. I couldn't deal with it. Yeah, it's pretty awful. Here's another one. Somebody's got a question about the cat, and again, we're going to say, what can I do to stop my cat from, and I can't actually read that one for some reason. It's one of those Instagram yokes that goes over down the bottom. So I'm going to say to you, Lewis, you're going to have to send that one to me via an Ask a Vet question as well, because I can't actually read what that one says. So, and there's one more here. Our 3-year-old Staffy loves to sleep in our room. How do you make it safe for baby too? Staffies are an interesting one. Do you know that? Because people tend to think of Staffies as being Staffordshire Bull Terriers, and they tend to think of them maybe being a bit more dangerous to children. But Staffordshire Bull Terriers are actually known as the nanny dog, because traditionally they got on so well with young children that they were seen as a dog version of a nanny. But anyway, how do you make the room safe for the baby too? You just have to have them in physically separated. That's what you need to do. Physical separation. You can't have dog and baby sort of free in the room by themselves. That's just not going to work. So I guess baby's likely to be in a cot, and dog's going to be on the ground. And maybe if you're going to be leaving them in there alone, I would suggest that a crate's a good thing to have. My dogs have got crates, and I think they're fabulous. Once they get used to them, they just see them as their own private little bedrooms, and I think that's a really good. It's nice for the dog as well as nice for us to have them. I have to say, Pete, my mum's dog is a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and it's honestly one of the kindest, most gentle dogs I've ever come across, and it's better with kids than my previous terrier would have been with kids. Such a gentle, loving dog, and my previous terrier would have been a bit snappy. So they're just, if they're trained correctly, I just think Staffies are such an incredible breed. Yeah,
they are. But mind you, I think I never like to get too anything about any breed, because it's really about the individual dog, and there's lovely examples of absolutely every breed.
Dog,
yeah. Lottie, look, we've gone for over half an hour now, and we tried to stick to half an hour, and I didn't make it, but it's just been so fun talking to you, and it's such a great topic. It's so relevant to so many people, and it's really important to get it right. So
yeah. Keep everyone in the family happy, and make the adjustment as easy as possible was my goal. So, Boo is just as much a part of the family as anyone. So we wanted to make sure she was kept happy, and I'm glad I have some kind of a plan in place now that I can start to put into action.
I look forward to following the progress on Instagram.
Oh,
Isn't
thank you so much, Pete. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. It was really fun.
Absolutely.
And great to meet you. Bye bye, Boo.
Say bye,
She's so gorgeous. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Pete.
See you again.
Bye
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.